This week's specials from Miles Franklin are 90% silver dimes and quarters, only $2.75 over spot, backdated silver maples for $3.25 over spot, and pre-33 $10 gold liberties for $34 over melt. We have a massive inventory along with cheap prices. You can text, email, or call slayer@milesfranklin.com, and I'd be happy to help. Now let's get into the video. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I was supposed to attach a GoPro to my head, climb in an airplane, fly up in the sky, and when I was in the cabin of the airplane, with all of you watching, I was going to scream two people's names. And as soon as I screamed those people's names, I was going to open up the cabin door and jump out of said airplane. But I live in Ohio, and if you are someone that knows anything about anything, Ohio weather is not California weather. So they had to cancel the skydive and we have to reschedule, but that means the giveaway is still open. And this stunt, I guess you could call it, is gonna be filmed. So you guys will all watch me do this. It's supposed to be a silver giveaway in celebration of hitting 100,000 subscribers. Entry videos in the description or the pinned comment. So may the luckiest two stackers win. This question shouldn't be controversial, but it is, and not for the reasons that it should be if it were to be controversial in a rational fashion. What do I mean by that? That sounds like a whole bunch of word salad. It actually makes a lot of sense. Is there really a shortage in silver? You would think the controversy would be, yes, there is, or no, there's not. But that's not where the controversy lies. It lies in how deceptive, how corruptive, and how deep this rabbit hole truly goes. Yes, of course, there's a shortage of silver, but when you just skim from the top, you will see some data, but when you start to dig deeper, like this article goes into with Ted Butler, then you start to see how corrupt, how illegal, and how sinister this entire controversy goes, how deep this rabbit hole truly goes. So we're going to dive into this. I found this article was posted yesterday from FX Street titled, "Is There Really a Shortage in Silver?" And going hand in hand with this article, we also have some other articles that came out today, actually. This came out today, April 23rd. Silver's solar demand tops forecast, surging 64% last year. Just solar alone jumped 64%. And on top of that, we have another article that came out yesterday from investingnews.com titled, "Silver Due to Record Second Highest Deficit in 20 Years, with them forecasting a deficit of 215.3 million ounces. Hundreds of millions of ounces in the red." So it's getting worse. Not only that, though, we also have news that came out today. Silver imports from UAE route rises sharply. In the first 3 months of the calendar year, over 40% of silver imports in India in 2024 has been coming through the UAE route. India actually imported 265% more silver from February this year than last year. So we're seeing this massive surge. And it's not just India. We're also talking about China switching their focus to silver and not so much gold anymore as well. So this is all coming along as, in real time, right? All these articles came out within the last 24 hours. A lot of them just a few hours ago. So to revert back to this original question, is there really a shortage in silver, knowing that the past 3 years we've had record-breaking supply deficits, hundreds upon hundreds of millions of ounces in the red, rapidly growing demand with a diminishing supply. We're talking about numbers that we can't even fathom, especially since they don't incorporate military and aerospace, and all these reserves are being bled dry. Of course there is. But what's the point of this question then? Well, the second portion goes into it. Ted Butler really dives into what's going on. They are removing the silver bars. There is a loophole where the COMEX, which, by the way, the Silver Institute, or the top people at the Silver Institute, are those at the COMEX as well, which speaks for itself, since the Silver Institute is known for manipulating their numbers or having to revise their numbers after someone calls them out of not being accurate enough. There's this whole conspiracy going on. A lot of it can't even really be called a conspiracy because it's been true and people have been caught red-handed with their pants down. But the whole point is this. It's definitely real, and it is price suppression. When they are trying to compare this one-to-one ratio of paper contracts to physical metal, meaning that however much paper silver is out there, there is a one-to-one ratio of that same amount of silver in physical vault. But there's not. And this is them inflating the amount of silver there really is. There's not that much silver out there. And if it was going off of reality, then the prices obviously wouldn't be this. They've overflooded the market with imaginary silver that isn't really in existence. So that ounce of silver you hold in your hand, the hundreds of other people think they own that same ounce, but they really don't. And that's why I say if you can't hold it, you don't own it. Because a lot of people think they own that silver online, but if they try to turn it in, or if everyone tried to at the same time, what a silver squeeze is, it would expose the price. And that's what the Hunt brothers did in 1980, which pushed the price of silver to the highest price it's ever been, still till this day. So anyways, that's just a little bit of context. I could go on for another 4 hours just scratching the surface of this simple yet not so simple question. So let's dive into the article. The Silver Institute released its 2024 World Silver Survey last week. According to the data, silver demand outstripped supply in 2023 for the 5th year in a row. The deficit was over 142 million ounces, and the forecast for 2024 indicates that the annual production shortfall will nearly double to 265 million ounces. And that's interesting because it was actually 190 million ounces in the red this year, so I don't know why he mentioned that. It was 190 million ounces. They forecasted it would be 140 million ounces, but it was actually 190 million ounces. They also forecasted production would be up 2% this year, but it was actually down 2%. So anyway, silver prices have finally began playing some catch-up to gold. Perhaps speculators in the futures market have finally begun paying attention to fundamentals like supply and demand. The overall supply deficit is corroborated by another data point. COMEX vault inventories of silver are also in decline. So if demand from industry and from investors is greater than what miners and recyclers can produce, then additional silver must come from existing above-ground stocks. COMEX vaults are major stockpiles. Sure enough, inventory in those vaults has been dwindling. The COMEX report's total silver inventory is just over 291 million ounces in the latest report published Friday. That is down from the peak of just over 400 million ounces in early 2021. Inventory in the much larger LBMA, or London Bullion Market Association vaults, has also fallen sharply. Stocks are down more than 300 million ounces from the 1.2 billion ounce peak in 2021. That is massive. So here we go into the legendary Ted Butler. Ted Butler of Butler Research has posed an interesting question for investors watching supply and demand. Last fall, he sent a letter to both the heads of the SEC and the CFTC. His question is whether the 100 million ounces of silver inventory reported by the iShares Silver ETF, SLV, which is stored by JP Morgan, which is the shadiest bank in the world, is also being reported by JP Morgan as COMEX inventory. It is a simple question, but the regulators have yet to answer. There are many reasons to think twice before buying silver or gold ETFs. The potential double counting of the inventory, which is supposedly backs those securities in just one of them. Their inherent counterparty risk is another. That's a good point. The double counting, right? Because there's not a one-to-one ratio which the price is supposed to be based off of. They're flooding the market with paper and holding down the price by doing so. So in addition to the questions about double counting, the outstanding shares of SLV have recently begun falling. Shares outstanding are a representation of the silver inventory held by the ETF. There were 482 million shares on April 8th. That number has fallen to 455 million shares currently. That means that SLV's inventory has fallen by 5.6% in 2 weeks, which is counterintuitive given what has happened to silver prices in that time period. Higher silver prices have not led authorized participants in the ETF to add silver and create more shares that they can sell into the market. They are removing silver bars instead. If the silver deficit reaches 265 million ounces this year, as forecast, how many of those ounces will come from the LBMA or COMEX warehouses? And at what price? Of course, much of the inventory in those vaults is not actually for sale at present, although at some price, nearly everything is for sale. The COMEX reports its holdings in two categories, registered and eligible. Only the registered holdings are available for delivery now. The owners of eligible silver must be persuaded to register their bars for that metal that could be sold and delivered. And most of that is never going to be turned in. And that's what they're hoping. And that's why when the Hunt brothers bought all the silver on the COMEX and turned it into physical delivery, that threw the system off guard. That was them doing a silver squeeze and pushed the price to $50 and made the government ban silver on the spot, throwing a rule called Silver Rule 7 out there, causing markets to go crazy. And that's what Wall Street Silver tried to do as well, silver squeeze. Buy all the silver up, force the COMEX's hand that there isn't that much paper silver out there, and the way to do it is have everyone that owns the paper silver turn it in, proving that there's not enough for everyone to have. Everyone wants a slice of the silver pie, but there's not enough pie to go around, and forcing the COMEX to play their hand would expose silver's price, and that's what a silver squeeze is. That's what they're trying to do. So, but actually, there's a natural silver squeeze happening already without them having to do these massive silver raids. So silver must be persuaded to register their bars before that metal can be sold and delivered. The registered inventory is only 47 million ounces currently, a small fraction of the 291 million ounce total in the COMEX system. The LBMA does not publish how much of the inventory is in their system is actually available for delivery. It's almost certainly far less than reported total. But to be certain, there are large amounts of silver outside of publicly reported stockpiles that could come back to market at higher prices. Stocks of bullion, coins, and bars are well north of 2 billion ounces, so that's a lot more potential supply that could also come to the market. Even though there are still lots of silver around, the silver production shortfalls will put pressure on prices to go higher in order to induce new mine production and or draw silver out of private hoards. And just a couple of key points real quick. One, the private hoards aren't selling. That's not even a big deal, though. The biggest part of that conclusion, or the last sentence, is new mine production. Now, when you talk about an annual demand of 1.2 billion ounces, or hundreds of millions of ounces in the red for multiple years in a row now, record-breaking, or India importing 265% more silver, did you know? I'm going to ask you a question. How much do you think the top silver mine in America mines in 1 year? How many ounces do you think the top mine does? Which it's either Phillips Baker, the CEO of Hecla Mining, that's the biggest mine. You also have Keith Neumeyer, CEO of First Majestic Silver. They're a little under. Phillips Baker has the most. I think it was like, just guess. Before I say the number, just guess. Remember, we have a demand of 1.2 billion ounces. So with the top mine, silver mine in America, how many millions of ounces do you think they produce annually? Is it 60 million ounces, you think? Because, 1.2 billion ounces annually for the demand is so much. 60 million? 100 million? What is it? What if I told you that this year they had a record? Well, I don't know if it's historic record, but this year they did great, or last year I would say. They did great. You want to know how much silver they mined last year? 16 million ounces. The top mine, the best mine in America, mined 16 million ounces. When we have a demand of 1.2 billion ounces, miners aren't even scraping the tiniest percentage of silver in terms of it coming back or producing, especially given that as time goes on, the records are being broken, creating more gaps. So it's like this never-ending cycle of the silver shortage getting worse, but for the time it would take to catch up and maybe even put things in green or even break even, we're creating more shortages. So yes, there was a 190 million ounce shortage this year, but by the time we catch those 190 million ounces up, we're going to be 2, 3, 4 years down the line with more records being broken of hundreds of millions of ounces in the red. It is impossible to catch up, especially since most silver is thrown away. So even if silver's price goes higher, what are miners going to do? Do you really think, I mean, most silver comes from Mexico and Peru, right? You have China, Australia, but it's Mexico and Peru, they accumulate a lot of the silver. But even their mines are being protested. The Fresnillo mine, or one of them in Mexico, they got protested and shut down. Especially the new ones that are trying to come online, like the one in Canada last year got protested because silver contaminates the groundwater. So I just don't see how this problem could be fixed. Or you could argue recycling. Recycling? I don't even think that could put a dent in the amount of silver we need. I couldn't see how, recycling is going to help the hundreds of millions of ounces in the red. They talk about how much silver sitting in a COMEX vault. That's how much silver we were in the red this year alone. Not really, 190 million ounces in the red, COMEX sitting at 291 million ounces in their vaults. But you know what I'm saying? You get the point. How much silver we have in reserve is literally almost how much we have in the red, how much silver we need just that year alone. But then you have a video like, where is it? This video is Silver the New Gold. The lady interviewing asks him, she goes into that. She says, well, in the next 5 to 10 years, what would these numbers look like? Because the numbers are already crazy now, record after record being broken, but imagine in like 10 years from now, or like 5 years from now, what would they look like then? And that's the angle I'm coming at. I don't try to look at things from such a minuscule day-to-day perspective. I try to step back, because that's what investors should do. Right? So anyways, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It was a good article. I'm glad they brought up Ted Butler, and I'm glad that they dived a little deeper in just the Silver Institute's numbers and what that is, because it does go a lot deeper than that. But anyways, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Make sure you guys subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys go enter my giveaway, and yeah, I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. Make sure you subscribe, like the video. Let me comment down below what you think about this, and also make sure you guys go check out my other videos. And I'll be doing another interview with Andy Scheckman for our podcast as well. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys later today or tomorrow. Peace.